Hello, my name is Fern G. Carr. My website is www.ferngzcarr.com. Welcome to my series, Themed Poetry Readings. This is Part 2, Visual Poetry. The arts are so intricately interconnected. Poetry in particular can metamorphose into whatever the poet's creativity decides. Poetry is found in art and music. Art and music are found in poetry. I've selected examples of both for this reading. The visual poetry I compose is quite eclectic in terms of style. The poems that follow are more narrative in that they have their own stories to tell. Enjoy! I had so much fun writing ghosts. I call it an exercise in negative space art. That's to say that the empty spaces paint a picture. I designed my poem in the shape of a square and formatted the words so that their edges would form the shape of a ghost at its center. Since ghosts are portrayed as either relatively transparent or a whitish color, I thought this negative space technique would be a perfect choice. To add a plaintive touch, I then drew two forlorn eyes and a mouth that looked like it was wailing. Even though it's a visual poem, I still wanted it to be poetic. I therefore intentionally used words that tied in with the theme. For example, instead of saying we found the family album, I used the word exhumed. I also purposely used words like legacy, which has a testamentary feel to it. Of course, I employed a lot of ghost-related vocabulary, such as shadows, spirits, apparitions, poltergeists, haunting, and hovering. The interesting twist, though, is that this really isn't a poem about ghosts. It's about the cycle of life and remembering our loved ones. Ghosts. On a nostalgic whim, we exhumed the family album, only to discover a haunted house. Every page inhabited by the ghosts of lives that once were. Their existence reduced to snapshots in time. Willful poltergeists smothering pudgy cheeks with slurpy kisses and impossible to remove lipstick marks. Come sit on my knee. Who's your favorite auntie? Playful apparitions hovering among the pages. Got your nose. Come here, pinch cheeks. And the children's favorites, the patron spirits. Grandparents who loved to spoil them silly with spare change and penny candy when they thought no one was watching. Too many pages are inhabited by phantoms. Their legacy? Fond reminiscences of idiosyncrasies and kindness. Like them, we too will become shadows. Our unfamiliar images haunting the yellowed photos of someone else's dust-covered album. A Funeral in the Rain not only deals with the cycle of life, but also how people react to it. As you'll see, I've written the poem in the shape of a headstone and a plot. I've even incorporated the title of the poem into the top part of the headstone. To make the poem even more visually appealing, I played around with the fonts a fair bit. For example, the word above is written as a superscript to draw attention to it and to provide contrast when referring to those above and below ground. I used some onomatopoeia for whoosh and splashing. For further effect, I put them in italics and then went from a small to a larger font within each word in order to mimic the approach of a distant car. I wanted to momentarily jog our attention away from the service, a brief reminder that life still goes on even though the mourners might not be ready to realize it yet. There are a few other little font tricks I used, but the one I think works quite well is the long line representing the grass, where the letters of each word are lying on their backs, like the deceased. I also thought the little tulip I added would make for a nice touch. A funeral in the rain. Under a slate-colored sky, raindrops pelt umbrellas, balanced on long legs, flamingo-like, above weary heads. Silent tears blend with the rain and trickle onto the drenched grass. All else is quiet, except for the drone of a prayer for the deceased and the occasional whoosh of a distant car splashing through puddles, oblivious to the grief of those who mourn. As the service concludes, some linger in the rain-soaked cemetery to pay their respects to loved ones who have long since passed on to their final resting place, a place where it doesn't matter why the bereaved weep, for the deceased or for themselves, a grim reminder of their own mortality. They shed tears that subside like the rain as the clouds pass and those above ground depart to resume their daily routine. Shipwrecked is another one of my visual poems represented by its shape. Like A Funeral in the Rain, I played with the fonts a bit, though not as much. I only employed two techniques here. One was to use a very small font for words like pinpoint specks and withered. The other technique was to add extra spaces between each letter of the word abyss to contribute to the feel of the vastness of the expanse of water and consequently to the futility of the situation. I also translated this poem into French and designed it in visual form. Of course, because of syntactical differences, the font tricks appeared in different spots throughout the poem. It was actually an interesting exercise to compare the two final results and see how it slightly modified the shape of each yacht. Shipwrecked. Disjointed memories. A wounded ship lists, creaking and moaning, as SOS distress calls pulse into the silent deep. The nimble scramble onto life rafts, cast adrift like flotsam, pinpoint specks atop a watery abyss, bobbing farther and farther away from an invisible shore. Days melt into one another under a sun that bastes already blistered skin and blindingly reflects an infinity of salt water to tease parched lips. Eventually flung ashore by a bored sea, most are too weak to help themselves, doomed to fall prey to the bugs and beasts waiting to feast on their withered bodies. When I think about how many of my poems have been the result of having gone for walks, it surprises me. This is one such example. My husband and I happened to be strolling past a gallery that featured an open-air jazz concert. It was inspirational. As an avid pianist, I wanted to display the words on the page to do justice to the music theme of cool jazz. I therefore decided to write my poem on a music staff along with treble and bass clefs. The idea was to have it resemble a piece of sheet music. I was positively thrilled when the Worcester Review nominated it for a pushcart prize. Cool jazz. A curl of thin blue smoke snakes around a half-empty glass of stale scotch. And as the ice cubes melt, the lazy swooshing of a brush caresses percussion cymbals. The mellow plucking of thick strings on the double bass in counterpoint with the twang of an electric guitar and the pained expression on the guitarist's face. While sultry saxophone romances the house, confident fingers fly across the keyboard. Pianist, eyes closed, sways back and forth, entranced by the rhythm he creates. Shoulders heaving as he makes love to the piano. It's jazz and it's cool, baby. Uh-huh. Acknowledgements and credits. All poems contained herein, copyright Fern G. Carr. Non-visual version of A Funeral in the Rain and visual version of Cool Jazz are from Fern G. Carr's poetry book, Shards of Crystal. Ghosts, visual version, was first published in Montana Mouthful. A Funeral in the Rain, visual version, was first published in White Wall Review. Shipwrecked, visual version, was first published in Cold Noon. Cool Jazz, visual version, was first published in the Worcester Review. Rainbow Eye photo courtesy of Harry Kwan on Unsplash. Colored Pebbles photo courtesy of Pierre Bama on Unsplash. Haunted House photo courtesy of Selena Alberts on Unsplash. Cloudy Night photo courtesy of Ganapathy Kumar on Unsplash. Umbrella photo courtesy of Janine Robinson on Unsplash. Rain photo courtesy of Sanjeev Nayak on Unsplash. Sunken Schooner photo courtesy of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Waves photo courtesy of Tyler Lastovich on Unsplash. Jazz guitarist photo courtesy of Dung An on Unsplash. Piano keys photo copyright Fern G. Carr. Opal background photo courtesy of Sharon McCutcheon on Unsplash. I would also like to thank Canadian Heritage, the Canada Council for the Arts, and the League of Canadian Poets for their support. Je voudrais remercier Patrimoine canadien, le Conseil des arts du Canada et la Ligue des poètes canadiens de leur soutien.